Hello everybody and welcome back to the F1 2021 My Team Career Mode with me, Dan, and the Radiant Racing team as we move on to race number 10 in Monza, the second race in Italy of the season, and a race not too dissimilar from the Canadian Grand Prix, so maybe we'll be able to do something good here in today's race. Now, of course, this is a very narrow track down into turn 1. So it's very difficult to stay out of incidents. One massive incident that we had in a recent co-op career mode is up on the channel somewhere, so don't forget to go check that out. Anyway, don't forget to like this video, hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, and comment down below what your highlight of the Grand Prix was. And we'll get on with the starting grid order for today's race. Here we go, second race in Italy, and it's Radiant Slothz with his first career pole. He's alongside Max Verstappen on the front row. An interesting run down to turn 1. Then we have the two Mercedes drivers of Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas. Then Sergio Perez in P5 alongside Lando Norris in P6. Norris's teammate Daniel Ricciardo, he's alongside Pierre Gasly. Running out the top 10 once again, Fernando Alonso and Charles Leclerc. Moving on, Carlos Sainz in another Q2 knockout, starts P11 alongside Esteban Ocon. Then we have Yuki Tsunoda and Sebastian Vettel behind them. Next up we have Antonio Giovinazzi, he's alongside Lance Stroll, the other Aston Martin. And then ahead of Kimi Raikkonen and George Russell. I think the first time he's out-qualified Raikkonen all season. Then we have Mick Schumacher, he is alongside the other Radiant Racing car of Zhou Guanyu. And finally it's Nicholas Latifi and Nikita Mazepin. Okay, here we go on the starting grid. It's going to be an interesting run down to turn 1. The Red Bull much faster than the Radiant Racing car. Perhaps luck put him on the front row of the grid. We'll just have to see what he can do here. And it's actually a good start for Radiant Slothz as he gets ahead of Verstappen. And Verstappen is going to try and challenge into turn 1. Radiant Slothz with a big lock-up is able to defend the position. The two Mercedes drivers battling away behind them. That's Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton. Bottas getting the upper hand there. And looking down the order, multiple cars changing position as Max Verstappen continues to harass the back of Radiant Slothz. Down the order, Zhou Guanyu up 3 positions from the start. What a good start for him as Radiant Slothz runs wide. Verstappen has a look up the inside of Lesmo 1. Radiant Slothz takes the position back. Goes on the grass again, clearly using every inch of the racetrack to try and keep his position ahead of Verstappen. He has made a small gap to him, and Valtteri Bottas now challenges for P2 into Ascari, and looks like Verstappen is going to back out of it, and Bottas now takes second position, which is probably arguably a lot harder to defend from because the Mercedes is extremely fast in this playthrough. As we've got Lewis Hamilton challenging for third. He is now up into the podium position as well. Max Verstappen, big loser on lap 1. No contact so far from what we can see, but it's been very difficult. Max Verstappen into the pits. There must have been damage on the front wing as we see Bottas trying to take the lead of the Grand Prix. He's going to go around the outside into turn 1, but Radiant Slothz keeps the inside line and is able to shut the door on that absolutely immediately. As looking down the grid order, that's 16th now for Zhou Guanyu. Let's go on board with Verstappen and try to establish what on earth went wrong here for the young Red Bull driver. It was an okay start, but Radiant Slothz matched him. And as they come down into turn 1, he tries to plant one up the inside of Radiant Slothz and just knocking the curb there, bounces him into the wheel of Radiant Slothz. This is on board with Zhou Guanyu as they make a run down to turn 1. So he's already got past Schumacher. Up ahead we've got Russell, Raikkonen and Stroll as Raikkonen and Stroll go side by side. Zhou Guanyu takes the opportunity to slot it up the inside. He does make contact with the Aston Martin. There was room. He didn't need to do that, but he decided to anyway. Has gotten away with it. At least it seems that way. As we rejoin the action. Radiant Slothz still ahead of Bottas. Lewis Hamilton less than a tenth behind Bottas. Now half a second behind Bottas. Interesting from the for the timing board there. Verstappen's going to be a little way back for a while as we see Bottas trying to go around the outside into not the Parabolica anymore. Radiant Slothz holds the inside line and is able to get through. And Lewis Hamilton, the sly fox that he is, sends it up the inside of his teammate. And now all three of them are coming down towards turn 1. Lewis Hamilton on Radiant Sloth's right. Now Valtteri Bottas goes up the left-hand side. We've got 3 cars abreast into turn 1. Radiant Sloth's, no way can he keep this up. He somehow manages to slot it down the inside. Oh, there's contact with Bottas! He spun the car around. We've got cars stopping on track. There's a Williams just crashing into the back of an Alpine there as we go through turn 1. The safety car is understandably out for this. We've lost George Russell. Zhou Guan Yu, big loser there. He's just dropped down to 20th position. What on earth happened there? Radiant Sloth's down the inside and he outbrakes the Mercedes and then he's just trying to maneuver his way through. Doesn't even look as though he made contact with anybody there as he came out of the second part of the chicane on board with Bottas. Let's see what on earth happened there. So he's able to maintain a fairly competitive position and then just cuts the corner. And that bounce has just sent him into the side of Sloth's and his wheel, potentially damaging the car. This is Sergio Perez coming down towards the incident, watching this happen. And yeah, Bottas straight over the curb. Perez hits the Mercedes and no doubt causes everyone behind him to slow down. This was George Russell. He's in a battle with Kimi Räikkönen here. Antonio Giovinazzi, sorry, and he just plows straight into the back of Esteban Ocon for no reason. And cars up ahead, just driving over the curb and ghosting.
Box.
There we go, we're down to 18 drivers. Zhou Guan Yu now at the back, right behind Nicholas Latifi. Verstappen back into this now. And into the pits come, presumably, everybody. At least everyone who's on the soft tyre should be coming in. I do hear cars going past, yeah. So in their infinite wisdom, AlphaTauri, Aston Martin, McLaren and Alfa Romeo have decided not to bring in one of their drivers. Daniel Ricciardo, we can't say is a surprise. He generally across the channel has made very interesting strategy calls. Let's just rejoin at the restart then. Radiant Sloth's net P1 as things stand at the minute. Aggressive restart from him. He's alongside Giovinazzi running down into turn 1. Up ahead, 3 more cars down between him and first position. He's going to make a dive bomb at the inside of Ricciardo. Ricciardo again running over the curb and crashing into the side of Radiant Sloth's there. We'll go on board to see if there was room and that could have been avoided. I sincerely doubt that Ricciardo put much effort into avoiding that collision. Max Verstappen, by the way, back up to 8th place. So that safety car really benefited him there as Antonio Giovinazzi loses another position. Attempts to lose another position. This is the on-board. So Radiant Slothz goes down into turn 1. Nice and clean. Leaves plenty of room. And the McLaren, again, bouncing over the sausage curb. Much in the same way that Valtteri Bottas did. Let's watch him now. I mean, there's no excuse for that, really. There is room. The door was open. Radiant Slothz did not close the door on the inside there. And, well, ultimately, Ricciardo's had to come in now. And he's at the back of the field, quite a way back. So, on board now with Lando Norris. He's trying to get past Giovinazzi. He's failing to get past Giovinazzi, who illegally weaves all over the racetrack ahead of Norris and Hamilton, who have decided to run in tandem alongside each other and decide later on who is going to be allowed to overtake Giovinazzi. They have made a decision. They're going to go alongside at the same time to make things nice and fair. Giovinazzi, I doubt, is going to fight this. No, he does fight this. It's now 3 abreast again. Lewis Hamilton nearly making the same mistake of those who came before him, crashing over the sausage curb. It looks as though it did compromise his exit, though, as Giovinazzi tries to come back at him as they come round. Lando Norris there makes a nice break. Let's go on board with Hamilton. Hamilton of the three probably has the best line into turn 1. Of course, it's the worst line into turn 2, and that's the one that counts here. And as he turns in, there wasn't as much room, and he did take slightly less curb, but because he's had to overcompensate for the fact he's got 2 cars on his outside, it's not helpful at all. As we see Giovinazzi with a massive bit of damage to his front wing. End plate there, probably not helping matters. As Hamilton gets past. Radiant Slothz now coming down into the not Parabolica anymore. Vettel and Tsunoda up ahead. Tsunoda comes in. That just leaves Sebastian Vettel out, who's decided not to come in for some reason. He's going to do 9+ laps on the soft tyre. Radiant Slothz does not go down the inside into turn 1. Probably wants the DRS with a massive power slide. He's going to want the DRS for later on in the race, as we see some action going on in the background there. As everyone tries to shuffle their way past Antonio Giovinazzi. And we rejoin Radiant Slothz, who nearly loses the rear coming out of the not Parabolica. Sebastian Vettel into the pit lane. Radiant Slothz now, P1. Lando Norris, we'll see as he comes across the start-finish straight in a second. There he goes, 5.5 seconds the gap. He's got Lewis Hamilton behind him, who will also be chasing for the win. Pierre Gasly a little way back, but not out of this yet. Neither is Max Verstappen or Charles Leclerc. They both have the cars and no doubt the pace to try and catch up. Got more action going on back there. That was Bottas getting past a couple of cars. As we go on board with Lewis Hamilton. The gap now down to 5 seconds to Radiant Slothz. Just because he qualified on pole does not mean he's going to be able to maintain this position. As Lewis Hamilton backs out of an attempt into Ascari to get past Lando Norris. Gap coming down again, another half second taken out of the Radiant Racing car. He's got no DRS, these two do. Well, one of them does, but at least they're going to be towing each other along as they come round onto the first of the final 3 laps. Lando Norris still holding P2 ahead of British countryman Lewis Hamilton. As we see Pierre Gasly now under attack from Max Verstappen, who had a dreadful opening to this race. Good recovery from him, back up to P4. That may be enough to salvage his championship title challenge, given the fact that up to this point, some of his other colleagues on the racetrack have not had the best of luck, including his teammate, including Lewis Hamilton. As Lando Norris now with 2.5 laps to go. Comes down through this first DRS. So there's Radiant Slothz. The gap now down to 3.5 seconds as we switch to go on board with Hamilton. Round Ascari. Still not possible to see Radiant Slothz in the distance as Lewis Hamilton tries to go around the outside of Norris. Down towards the final corner. He is ahead into the corner, but he's made a mistake. A lock-up. Who knows? Verstappen gets through as well. Hamilton will be kicking himself there. That was a dreadful mistake to be making at this stage of the Grand Prix. 2 laps to go, and now he's under massive pressure from Pierre Gasly as they go down towards turn 1. Gasly might get held up by Verstappen here. He doesn't. Lewis Hamilton backs out of the defence. He's now got the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc behind him. That is a dreadful result for Lewis Hamilton. Drops him P3 all the way down to P5. He's got the most work to do out of all of the 4 drivers at the top, given that he had the worst start to the season of all of them. But this man, Radiant Slothz, comes around the final corner, and he's going to celebrate in style. And he's had a massive accident on the pit straight. He sends the DRS board into the crowd. He says they're souvenirs for the spectators. It's a good job they've got a fence that high to protect them from the debris, as Nicholas Latifi gets driver of the day, presumably for making the most overtakes. Unfortunately, that doesn't count when the drivers you're overtaking all crashed out of the race. But for the second time this season, Radiant Slothz stands triumphant on top of his car, causing millions of pounds worth of damage. Celebrates with the team, who now are officially keeping the light green uniforms. Thank goodness we didn't have to see that purple with a race win, because that would have been disgusting on the t-shirts of the mechanics. And there he is, Radiant Slothz, filming illegally on the podium. He will be reprimanded by the FIA for that, and fined multiple times for copyright infringements, as he sprays his engineer, Jeff, with champagne, ignores Lando Norris completely, and the other guy on the podium, who I was completely ignoring as well, is forgotten. Well, given the fact that I was completely ignoring Max Verstappen on the podium, I will acknowledge him right here. He was followed by former teammate Pierre Gasly, then Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, Valtteri Bottas, Carlos Sainz, Fernando Alonso, and Esteban Ocon. So how does that affect the Drivers' Championship? Well, Max Verstappen maintains first position ahead of teammate Sergio Perez, but Radiant Slothz leapfrogs up the order ahead of the two Mercedes drivers by just a handful of points, but he is now ahead of Bottas and Hamilton. Further down the order, Lando Norris approaches 100 points ahead of Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, Pierre Gasly, and Daniel Ricciardo. Further down the order, Yuki Tsunoda sits in a comfortable P11 ahead of Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon, tied on 9 points, followed by Lance Stroll, Kimi Raikkonen and Sebastian Vettel also tied on 5. Then George Russell as the final point scorer, Zhou Guanyu, Antonio Giovinazzi, Nicholas Latifi, Mick Schumacher, and Nikita Mazepin conclude the standings. Finally, over in the constructors' standings, no movement from any of the teams here. Red Bull maintain their first position lead ahead of Mercedes. Back to the battle for third place. It's just 4 points in it right now between Ferrari, McLaren, and Radiant Racing, as that battle intensifies towards the end of the season. Then we have AlphaTauri, Alpine, Aston Martin, Alfa Romeo, Williams, and finally Haas. That's all. We'll catch you in the next one.